Hello Gobs and welcome back to another video. If you're not a Gob, get subscribed and become a Gob today. Before you type your comments, because I already know people seeing this title are already going to start typing comments about whatever, going to call me a new gen or stupid or something. I mean, you can still type them. I just implore that you listen and hear me out through the video first. So watch to the end and then type your comments if you really want to. But today I am doing, well, obviously I'm doing a Gob Rants. This is my series where I talk about, right now I'm talking about tabletop stuff, but I'll do some other stuff eventually, okay? I got some RPG stuff, and it's not necessarily all going to be ranting, but a lot of it's just issues I feel fondly of, boldly of, something like that, with some usual hot takes in there, or at least I think they're hot takes. I don't think today's is actually that much of a hot take, but we'll see once the video goes up. But the goal of these Gob Rants is not to inspire anger, but it's more to invoke discussion in the comments. We are always growing as people, and I like to see other people's point of views. So whenever you type a comment, that opens up my eyes to the way someone else feels. So I'm going to talk about why I dislike this thing. I'm going to rant about it, and then you guys can go in the comments and maybe change my mind. These may always have a follow-up video, so if you leave a comment, you may show up in that next video. So, you know, get down there, start typing. I mean, I guess this is also a way to get comment engagement, but I don't really care. I'd rather just see your point of view. I'm always wondering about how people's lives differ from my own. So that's the goal of Gob Rants. And today's Gob Rants is why I hate rolling for stats. Now, I had given this some thought, and this video breakdown is going to be a bit weird, but I've came up with 3 major reasons. Of course, there's always going to be a bunch of minor reasons, personal reasons, and these may even divulge into each other, because not everything is going to be set in stone. You can't just say, hey, this is this person's reason. There's going to be a ton of reasons for why people like the things that they do. But I'm going to give these 3 reasons. I'm going to explain them just a little bit. That will probably help explain why I hate rolling for stats. So let's start off with our 3 reasons. Let's just get right into today's Gob Rants. I don't want this to be that long of a video, so let's just get right into it. Number 1, you're an old gen or a veteran. What happened to calling people veterans? Why is it old gen? Am I missing something? It's just people who have played the game for a while. Reason number 2, power builders. Reason number 3, you just really like the randomization of it all. Is that how you say it? Randomization. You like the randomness of stat rolling. So those are the 3 reasons I think a lot of people like rolling for stats. So let's just go break them down a little bit, and then I'll give my overall review of it, I guess. But anyways, whenever you're rolling for stats, I'm mainly applying to systems. Well, the first one's primarily going to be 5th edition. I haven't played D&D 1 yet, so I don't know what they say in that one. I'm pretty sure they say use standard array, but you can still roll for it. But anything I talk about is probably going to be based off of 5e. So a lot of older gens or veterans have played systems older than 5th edition, such as, I don't know what they did in 4th edition, but I know 3.5 and 3rd edition and 2nd and advanced D&D, all of those you all roll for stat. There's no standard array to pick from. 5e gives you the standard array, which is the 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 8. All these other ones, they don't really have that. When my group was trying out 3.5, we had to go and find preset abilities, because, you know, they had so many D&D journals or newsletters out at the time. I forget what they're called, but all the add-ons for those older systems were out, and one of them had a set of preset numbers, which would technically be standard array back then. But anyways, a bunch of old systems from around this, at least in America, a lot of these older systems had you rolling for stats. Now, I have seen some older systems where you got to pick out your stats, but D&D was primarily the biggest tabletop role-playing game. In that game, you rolled for stats. So, with these veterans, they just kept playing these old games, and they kind of just got used to rolling for stats. Now, they might have their own reasons for liking it, but one of the biggest ones I can point to is probably tradition. It's just what feels natural, what feels right for them. Even if it's not something that they like, it's just, well, you gotta like it. I mean, if you dislike it, then why do you keep doing it? But I feel like a lot of these people get ingrained into tradition, and they're just used to rolling for stats, and that's one of the biggest reasons. It's just the veteran players who play these old systems where you roll for stats, and they're just so used to rolling for stats. Reason number 2, power builders. Or I don't want to say min-maxers, but basically you want big score, you want big numbers in these ability scores in 5e. You roll 6 times and then you get to put those scores wherever you want. And people, you get 46, drop the lowest one. People love seeing an 18. And in 5e, if you pick a certain race, or if you use Tasha's Squadrons, which lets you put a +2 anywhere, that's a 20 in a stat straight from the get-go. Level 1, you can just have 20 in the stat. Now normally that would take you have to get to level 4 for ASI. So if you have a 17 in the stat and then you get to 19, then you get to level 8. So instead of having to wait for 8 level ups, you can just straight up have a 20 from the get-go. That's mainly going to be the max in the stat. So people seeing those big numbers, they really just prefer to roll for stats so they can have these big numbers. They often miss the point that usually rolling for stats is going to be worse than standard array, but we'll get into that later. But for the most part, people want big number in stat. That's why people like to roll for stats. They want that chance to get that big number so they can have a overpowered character, I guess. I'm not too really sure why, but I'll get into the reason I hate rolling for stats. But let's get into our third reason, which is people just like the randomization, or you're probably just a gambler. There's not much to this. You just like randomizing stats. You don't really care if you get a bunch of low stats or if you get a bunch of high stats. You just really like the randomization. Or if you're like a gambler, I guess this is D&D's way of gambling, in that you could get a really high score, but you can also get a 3, because 46, 1 on each one, on all 4, drop the lowest one, that's a 3 in the stat, which is like a -5 or something. And if you put it into intelligence, you basically just made the party's pack meal. Not a pack meal, but because I think in D&D, if you have less than 4 intelligence, you're considered a beast, right? Someone correct me. I'm pretty sure, you still have your fight for survival, but you don't have the the higher aptitude or intelligence to make your own commands, I guess, or something like that. You're just living off of pure instinct. I think that's how it works. But regardless, those are the 3 big reasons. I kind of scattered for the start of a video, I know, but I think I just wanted to get that out there and out of the way so I can move on to why I hate rolling for stats. Now, I don't have an exact number of reasons of why I dislike rolling for stats. I kind of just have one big one and a couple nitpicks, but a lot of those nitpicks can be easily mitigated. The biggest one is just don't play those systems. If you have a system where you roll for stats, such as Traveler or an older D&D system, and I can't think of another system where you roll for stats because I played too many systems. Just don't play that system, and I do. I just don't play that system. I just go and play all these other systems where I don't have to roll for stats, but we'll get into those later. I keep saying that, but trust me, it would probably all make sense. I'm ranting right now, so I don't really care. But one of my biggest reasons is I want to make the character I want to make. Now in 5e, you get to roll your stats and you get to put those numbers anywhere. But like I said, there's some where you have to go through each individual stat and roll it as you make the character. So with those, you just roll to see what you get and then you make a character. But in these systems such as Traveler and Call of Cthulhu, maybe there's something that you want to do specifically. Like in Traveler, it's a space sci-fi TTRPG. Maybe you want to be an interplanetary explorer. But let's say you have no navigational skills, you have no piloting skills, because you didn't roll to get a good number in those stats. Now, I think Traveler lets you roll and then put the numbers where you want them, but the basis raw, you have to go through each stat and roll each one as you go down the list. So you don't get to roll all of them and then put them in there. But again, you can always just homebrew, or I think they even have a alternative rule that lets you roll beforehand and then put the stats where you want. But then again, if you roll super low, then you're not really going to get the stats you want anyways. But then we have Call of Cthulhu, which Call of Cthulhu, you do have to actually roll for each one. I think Pulp changes it, but base Call of Cthulhu, you have to sit down and roll for each stats. So if you want to make this big bruiser, dumb character, well, you just have to wait to see what you actually get. You don't get the option to put those stats where you want to, because in Call of Cthulhu, each stat is rolled differently. Now, some DMs, depending on how lenient they are, may allow you to re-roll these stats once or twice. If you're playing with a group of friends, then it shouldn't really matter too much, but everyone plays the game differently, which could be said for all of this. Every group plays differently. Which leads me into my next reason, okay? It sounds a bit weird, but whenever you're rolling for stats, if everybody's rolling for stats, you are going to have some overpowered characters because people will inevitably roll high. Now, if we look at the average is probably 9 to 12, but dice aren't average number generators, they're random number generator. So on average, you might end up with a 0 to a +1 in 5e if you roll for stats. But that's not the case because there's luck, or whatever you want to call it. It's just a random number generator. And sometimes people are going to roll really high. And then sometimes people are going to roll really low. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't like playing a character that has an extremely negative stat in any of the stats. Now, if you look at the average, it's saying you might get 9 to 10, which is okay. But if we go back to that example, 46, drop the lowest, you still have a chance to get a 3. While on the same hand, you also have a chance to get an 18. But I think you have way more chances to get an extremely low number than you do an extremely high number, which is why I don't really like rolling for stats. Because it creates this thing in a group where someone has like 3 18s and a couple low stats, and then this person over here has like 12, 11, 12, 8, 6, 5. Again, it depends on how lenient your DM. They might have you re-roll it, but the whole point is that someone's going to be extremely overpowered and someone's inevitably going to be extremely underpowered. Now, some people like playing underpowered characters just as much as some people like playing overpowered characters. Certain groups don't really care about having these power discrepancy, while in some groups they can just create a feel bad. But you guys know your groups that you're playing with, or at least I hope you do, so this really isn't going to be that much of an issue. I play with a friend group and I let them know that I don't like rolling for stats, and they're all okay with it. And again, I just don't play systems that have random stat rollings. Like, I will play them. Like, I like Traveler somewhat. We haven't played Traveler in a bit, but even though it has stat rolling, I will still play it. It's not like I'm totally against it, but that just leads into one of my biggest reasons, and it's I personally have bad luck. Now, this is why this is called Gob Rants, and specifically why I hate rolling for dice. This isn't saying that rolling for stats is bad. This is saying I hate rolling for dice because I have bad luck. Anytime I've ever rolled for stats, there was like one time where I got anything above a 15, and all the other numbers were like mid or low, or just worse than standard array. Now, there are some DMs out there, like my friends, they are very cool, they are very lenient. They'll let you take, like, you could either roll for it, or you could take standard array. You know, one of those things. But there are some other ways in rolling for stats to mitigate, like the earlier reason I said, where you have some overpowered characters and then you have some underpowered characters at the table, creating this feel bad. One method that I've seen, this is how I would fix rolling for stats, because at the end of the day, I'm unlucky. I can't do anything about it. I might get a big set, and if I ever did roll for sets, but at the end of the day, I'm just unlucky. So I should have said this earlier. I'm not a professional here, okay? I'm just a little goblin, okay? I'm just a little guy. I'm just ranting. I'm just rambling. I'm just going on. So anyways, here is one way I've seen that rolling for stats can fix this. It doesn't work for all the systems in which you roll for stats, such as Traveler or Call of Cthulhu, but it should work in like 5e or even D&D 1. One thing that I've seen people do is that they have everybody at the table roll for stats, except the DM, obviously. And then the DM will go and look at each person's roll. They'll pick one person, and everybody gets to use that roll. So I did this with one of my campaigns. I let my players roll, and then I let everybody else use whatever role I thought would be perfect for the campaign. Now, this might create a bunch of overpowered characters, but again, everyone's playstyle and play group are different. Some people like this overpowered, like D&D's already like a power fantasy, but some people like a notch above. There's even a playstyle called, what is the guy called? Oh, the guy, it's just the guy, why did I forget such a simple name? Does he hire the Avengers? Whatever, it's basically you're recruiting superheroes is one of the playstyles that you can find in these TTRPGs, to where people just want to get these really overpowered characters so they can throw quotation marks more at them, but I don't know what more is. Well, a higher DC and more damage, but that's a Gob Rants for another day. I have questions about why people want overpowered characters and what throwing more at them is, but don't leave that comment for this video, leave that for another video. But I think my original point is that using these might create some overpowered characters, or if you have a really crappy DM, they just might pick the lowest out of the group pool and everyone has to make really underpowered characters. But again, that just might be the playstyle of the group. I would hope you DM would want to pick something that works for their campaign and works for everybody else, so everybody has fun. Okay, have fun. That's the main thing. Have fun. Now, I know this might be a hot take topic, okay, because people love rolling for stats. But here are some other systems, okay, if you have a problem like me, you have bad luck, or if you just don't want to see that power discrepancy, there are tons of other systems where you don't roll for stats that are just as fun, like the biggest one being Pathfinder 2e. Now, you still have to put your stats specifically in certain places based on your race/heritage that you pick, or ancestry. They're called ancestry in Pathfinder. Regardless of your race or ancestry that you pick, you can always make the character that you want in Pathfinder 2e. That's just one of the systems. There's also Lancer, Fabula Ultima, Ryutama, Root. There's so many systems and they're all so incredibly fun that you don't have to roll for stats. But again, that's just a personal thing. If you want to roll for stats, then Call of Cthulhu, Traveler, D&D, Morkborg, Cyborg. But you get the idea. There's tons of systems where you don't roll for stats and there's tons of systems where you do roll for stats. Check with your group and see which ones you guys want to do. If you have any issues, make sure you talk to it about your group. Say, hey, I don't really like the stats I rolled on this character. Now, I don't expect them to let you just keep rolling until you get the perfect stats. Don't abuse it like that if they're going to let you roll. Like, I didn't get an overpowered character, let me roll again. And I'm not going to play until I get an overpowered character. Give some leeway. Both sides should have some leeway, should have some say into this. Again, at the end of the day, just make sure everybody is having fun. So that's it for rolling for stats. I think I gave some reasons why people like it, why I dislike it, and some other solutions or systems to play and where you don't have to roll for stats, or systems where you do have to roll for stats and ways to roll for stats without it making power discrepancy within the group. Now, I know I was a bit all over the place in this video, but we are at the end. So leave a comment down below if you agree with me. Leave a comment if you disagree with me. I try to answer all of the comments. I know I say that, but sometimes it'll be late at night and I'll see the comment like, oh, I should type a response, and then I just fall asleep and forget about it. But I do like reading comments. Even if I don't react or anything to it, I am reading all the comments. Obviously, I'm a small YouTuber. Of course, I'm gonna read the comments. I like constructive criticism. I like criticism. I don't care. Anything to make my style better. But that's what Gob Rants is about. It's to invoke conversations within the comments, to have people talk about it, and to see what your guys' opinions are. So, again, if you match my opinion, or maybe you have the same reasons, or maybe you have a completely different reason, even if there's a specific reason why you like rolling for sets, let me know in the comments. I like hearing what people have to say, and that will conclude my rants. I didn't rant too much, or I didn't try to. I think you could tell when I was ranting. I think this whole thing was just a rambly thing. I know I'm all over the place, but I think it's still fun to sit down and listen to and have these conversations. Now, normally I do my social media plugin, but I think I'm just gonna stop doing that and just leave it for the outro. It's getting pretty repetitive, and I don't think anybody would even watch it. I don't even think you're watching this. Hey, if you're watching this, thanks for watching. Thank you. You're awesome. You're cool. I've been trying to do the same thing to other YouTubers, watching their intros and outros, because normally I skip them, okay? I think we all kind of the same. We don't really care about the outro, but hey, like again, if you're seeing this outro, thanks for watching. Check my social media in the description, and I hope you guys have a lop of the day. I don't have a woody quip or anything to say at the end of this. Bye.